So this chapter, okay, V-shape economic recovery. From this, you can expect a question. If not directly, they will ask an indirect question. This session will help you to solve that get 2 marks. Okay, so economic survey in detail had talked about this V-shaped economic recovery, and most of the time the Minister of Finance or any secretary or even Nidhi Aayog is talking about this economic recovery. They use the word V-shaped economic recovery. So you need to have an idea behind it. Okay. Now this chapter is, till now we were discussing about chapter 2, fiscal development. This chapter is from this national income. In economic survey, the topic name is chapter 1 is state of the economy. State of the economy. Okay. So basically, in this session, to understand this V-shaped economic recovery, you are supposed to know what is national income, how national income is calculated. Then only you will be able to understand this chapter. Okay. So in short, I will tell you what is national income, since few new students also are there. National income is nothing but the money value of all the final goods and services produced in a country. Okay, national income is very important. So how we calculate national income is through GDP. So GDP is nothing but a method of calculating national income. Okay, so we call it as gross domestic product. Now we everything to calculate this national income, we look into 2 main angles. One is the supply side angle. Other is the demand side angle. GDP is all about goods and services, na? Yes or no? Yes. GDP is what? It is the money value of all the final goods and services produced in our country. So this goods and services is having a supply angle as well as a demand angle. So you can so this is how we have to calculate national income. So we can calculate national income from the supply side or from the demand side. So if you are calculating national income from the demand side, who is there in the demand side mainly? They are consumer. In the supply side, they are producer. So, if you are calculating national income from the consumer side, we calculate based on the expenditure method. That is what we will do, not with the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Okay, we have an exclusive organization, National Statistical Organization, which come under Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Their role is to calculate these data. So there are 4 prominent members are there. Group is there. One is household. Second is business people, business groups, private sector. Third is government. And fourth is net exports. Net exports, I'll discuss all these things. What we will do? We'll take it from they will put them under from the expenditure angle, okay? So take the case of household. What is the household expenditure? We say in economics, the terms is very important, okay? We will find out the expenditure of the household. We say it as private consumption expenditure. We will take gross private consumption expenditure like that. Private consumption expenditure is the expenditure of all the households in our country. So we can calculate how much the money you spend on goods and services. If you add all the people, you'll get it, na? We'll get this. See, you need to have a general idea only. You don't go into detail because you are not going to become an economist or something like that. You are a generalist. Okay, so you're getting what I'm saying. From the household angle, we will get private consumption expenditure. Then business. The businessman, actually their expenditure, business expenditure is different. It's not that what, see, even the businessman is also a part of household. Yes or no? Now here the business expenditure, what in economy, what does it mean is that the investment expenditure. The money they spend on investment is the expenditure. So the second angle. One is private consumption expenditure. Second is the expenditure made by, for example, someone is building a factory. A private company is building a factory. That is an investment expenditure. It's he spent some money for it, no? And he built a factory. It has a value. That is second. We call it as, okay, capital formation also, or capital expenditure also. So be very clear, okay, we'll use this word. So business people make expenditure, so that we will add it. Then the expenditure made by the government also makes many expenditure. We have seen it in the public budget class. Every government, central government, state government, etc. And finally, net export. Net export means export minus import. That is how much we export and how much we import. That resultant one. If we add all these four, we'll get the GDP value. This is one method of calculating GDP from how we had done it from the demand side. Now, from the supply side, also we can calculate. From the supply side also we can calculate the national income. How means? We divide the economy into three sectors. Agricultural sector, industrial sector, and service sector. We call it as primary sector, secondary sector, tertiary sector. So they are all producing, na? Primary sector is producing, or agriculture is producing something, it is having value. Industrial sector is producing something, it is having value. Service sector is also contributing, it is having value. So, but here, we will use the word gross value added. See, there should, like in the case of this GST, we discussed the concept of value addition. It's why it is called as value added. See, goods or services, especially in the case of goods, only value addition should be added. Otherwise, repetition will come. Take the case of car. This tire manufacturer produces a tire, and you're calculating. Then the car manufacturer produced a car. So that all are added now. If you added car and tire, then it's not the right GDP or right national income. That's why from the supply side, what we will do is, from all the three sectors, we will find out gross value added. Okay. So here it is gross value added. Here it is GDP at market price. For you to have a general idea. Then this GDP can be measured. See, GDP means what? GDP is nothing but the total quantity of goods and services plus their prices. These prices can be current prices and constant prices. We already discussed, I am repeating again. If it is constant prices, it is real GDP. If it is current year price, it is normal GDP. With this background, now you will understand it. Okay. And you know that, okay, how GDP growth rate, okay, GDP growing positively, GDP growing negatively. If GDP growing negatively, means it is recession, okay. Now, we shape economic recovery. Okay. What all things I am discussing, okay, note down, okay. So, economic survey, every content I have taken from economic survey. So, it's like this class is like you are reading an economic survey, okay. Economic survey this section starts like this. India's GDP contracted. India's GDP contracted in the financial year 2021. See, we are talking about which year? Economic surveys for the year? Economic surveys for the year 2020-21. So the economic survey is talking about this financial year. It is saying that, and when, see, economic survey is having data up to November end only. So the economic survey is not having the full data of this year. Okay. So economic survey says that, okay, in the quarter one of this financial year, economy contracted by 23.9%. Contraction means negative growth rate. Decline, contracted, GDP for quarter one declined by minus 23.9%. In quarter two, there is a decline of minus 7.5%. Do you know what is the Q3 value? Quarter 3 value? Anybody knows? No one knows, because it is not out. The government have not disclosed it. But we are projecting, because we can project now, because already first advanced estimate came. Very soon. Very soon. Maybe in another 10 days you will get the Q3 result. But one thing is very clear. So, see, so if you add Q1 and Q2, you will get H1. What is it? First half of the financial year. Now you have Q3 and Q4, that is second half of the financial year. So second half of the financial year, the economic survey is not taking the real data, it is a projected data. But it is discussing here. That also you keep in mind, okay? Now, so the survey says that the GDP contraction, so once we are having two consecutive negative growth rate, that technically we are into recession. Okay? So we are into recession. So officially with the quarter 2 of 2021, India, it was accepted that India is currently in recession. So we have to wait. If Q3 we are having positive growth rate, then we are coming out of recession. So we have to see that whether Q3 is negative or positive. So it reflects. So a survey says that this negative growth rate reflects the unparalleled effect of the COVID-19 pandemic and the containment measures, the strict containment measures taken by the government to control this pandemic. Okay. So this contraction is not only for India. Not only India went for this lockdown. All over the world, especially during the early 2020. Every country went for different lockdown, okay? And again we are seeing a new form of lockdown. You have seen that today, I think yesterday, today's news is Pune is going for lockdown. Weekend lockdown. Some areas in Maharashtra, some areas have started again, because we are seeing new strains of, there have been new cases. In India there are new cases of, so I am not going to that part, but see, what it is showing that, okay, it will take this pandemic thing it's not over and it will take some time, maybe another 1 more year. So we have to be very careful, and so hopefully we should not face any more lockdown like what we had earlier. That will create a disaster. Anyway, so it's saying that we went for a stringent lockdown, and this you please note down. It is because this is an index, okay? Index is a favorite for UPSC. And since it is mentioned in the it's mentioned in the economic survey. So what is that? So if you look into the government response stringency index, they are in calculating the different stringent measures taken by many countries all over the world. And if you look into this Oxford, it is released by Oxford University. Okay. So according to this Oxford University Government Response Stringency Index, India is one of those countries where we had the most stringent lockdown, and we have faced it. No need to explain. Everyone have faced it. Okay. But the survey says that the fundamentals of the economy is still strong, and it is reflected as we gradually scale down the lockdown, along with the fiscal stimulus package. What is the fiscal stimulus package named Atma Nirbhar Bharat package or Atma Nirbhar Bharat mission. Seen. You have seen that the huge stimulus package the government have done. Okay. So, along with the scaling back of lockdown as well as the greater support, financial support given by the government in the form of Atma Nirbhar Bharat mission, it has brought the economy firmly on the path of recovery. So, we are on a recovery. See, we are still recovering. We are on a recovery stage from negative growth rate to, so it will, the data will clearly speak about recovery. But it's sure that, okay, anyway, by fourth quarter it is confirmed, we will be in a positive growth rate. Third quarter, maybe it will be minus 0.2 or something like that. We don't know exactly. Anyway, the December quarter is over, but data the government is collecting. We need some time. Nearly with a 2-month gap only, we get the full data. Okay. So, but we'll stick with what is mentioned in the economic. You are supposed to know what is mentioned in the economic survey. Okay. This NSO, note down, National Statistical Organization, has estimated that the contraction of real GDP for the entire financial year. So, as per the first advanced estimate, okay, as per the first advanced estimate, the GDP for the financial year 2020-21 will contract by how much? Minus 7.7%. It's mentioned in the economic survey. Compared to, economic survey says that previously in 1920, economic survey says that the previous growth was 4.2%. But we know that just a few weeks back, that was further revised by the government. It is now 4% of GDP. But economic survey there, that is 4.2. But if you are having update data, that is the best thing. Okay. And this is an area where I am expecting a question. Because economic survey says that, see, so 2020-21 financial year, you know that India have contracted. What do you mean by contraction? We are having negative growth rate. Means, compared to the previous year, the GDP value is lesser. So, economic survey says that this is the fourth contraction happening in India's GDP since 1960-61. Be very careful. Say, it have not used the word after independence. It is saying from 1960-61 onwards. If you take this from this time onwards, if you take the data from 1960-61 onwards, till now, this is the fourth GDP contraction. This is the fourth GDP contraction. And they are saying which all are the years where we had earlier GDP contraction. Okay. In 1965-66 we had contraction. In 1971 and 72 we had contraction. These 2 years, the reason for contraction is war. One is war. Plus, along with war, natural drought, severe drought. So, war and drought is the reason for the contraction. So, naturally, if there is drought, what will happen to the agriculture growth will be low or negative. Because water is a crucial input for agricultural activity, yes or no? Then, next was 1979-80. So, this year was not a war year. But this was also a year where we had severe drought, as well as political instability. You know that after this, Indira Gandhi after this Morarji Desai, that gap, after the emergency, then for nearly 2 years, Morarji Desai government was there. So that it was a period of political instability also. When when you have a unstable government, it will have, the business investment will be lesser. So that will be, so the entire economic activity will be lesser and the GDP will be affected. Okay. So this is the trend of, so one common thing about all the 3 years is, common thing is drought. So naturally in all the three contraction, GDP contraction, it is mainly because of the agricultural contraction. During those periods, we are basically an agrarian economy. Things changed after economic reforms only, 1991 economic reforms only. But this is one important, see, this is actually the question you have to note down. In the 2021 GDP contraction, there was no drought, rather we had a positive growth of 3.4% in agriculture. I told you, agriculture industry, take three things, agriculture, industry and services. Industry and services contributed to negative growth, not agriculture. Agriculture was well good, means there was a decent growth rate. Both in the first half as well as, even during lockdown also, agriculture, it was not affected. So this is actually, I am not saying, economic survey is saying. So this can be a question. Okay, we'll come to it, okay. So note down, in these 3 years we had drought. Here the GDP contracted not because of drought, you know that it's because of the stringent measures taken by the government. Now economic survey is showing a picture. What is this? Read this, growth of real GDP. So this green color is, as well as this both color are real GDP. The difference is that, okay, the green color is showing positive growth rate, red is this negative growth rate. See, these are the 4 contracting years, okay. 1965, see, GDP contracted somewhere around 2 point something negative. Then this is a very minor negative contraction. Then you can say that somewhere around 4.5 in the year 1979. So before this, the highest contraction we had is in 1979-80, as per the data, from this figure. So you can say that among all the contraction, from the data available from 1960-61 onwards, see, 2021 minus 7.7. This is somewhere around 4.5. This is around point something only. This is around 2 point something. So among all the 4 contracting years, which one is more, means the economy have never contracted like this. That also noted down, okay. So just for regarding real GDP, understand from the data available, from which year the data is available? 1960-61 onwards. Okay, from this data till here, we had 4 contraction years. The highest contraction is minus 7.7. That is our current year. That's the reason why you can expect a lot of questions from it. And which is the real GDP growth we had? Somewhere near to 10. So in this last, if you look into the economic survey data, we have never seen an economic real GDP growth above 10%. Yes or no? Is it visible from the data? Okay, so we have a goal in the future, okay, to have a real GDP growth of about 10%. Then only our problems will get solved. China, see, in 1980, 79-80, India and China's GDP was same. Imagine, in the year 1978, see, China went for reforms in nearly end of 1970s. That time, India's economy and China's economy was same. Now, why China went ahead of India in terms of? It's because of continuous growth. China went for a double digit, that's the word used, double digit growth rate. If it is about 10 and above, double digit growth. And they continuously grown for next 20-25 years. They had a long period continuous double digit growth. That time we were facing problem. So we can see, we have seen a question that India will overshoot China's, that can also happen. Can we overcome China? Yes. Provided we should grow around 12% or 15% consistently for another 40-50 years. So maybe in our lifetime will not happen, but surely, we don't know. Okay, see, but it is possible. It should grow because we are not only, when we grow, China is also growing. But we have a big advantage over China. You know what is the advantage we are having over China? Demography. But there is a difference is that it's not demography, the demographic dividend, because we are having more younger population. China is now regretting because of their one China policy. Now China will have a problem. They will have more aged people over after. So we have that advantage if we can utilize this, our demographic dividend in a positive way. Maybe that, and if we are having considered, because see, now the entire world is dependent on service sector. And service sector requires, and for that our people have to be educated. That's the problem. See, we have to address many problems. I'm not discussing that, okay. Why? These things you keep in mind, because if any such type of question is being asked, there will be many analytical questions. You can answer it if you understand the importance of this GDP. Okay. Now I just want to connect one point. Okay, it's not relevant here. I'm telling that. Okay. See, why Soviet Union disintegrated? They were only a military power. They was not an economic power. Now why US is fearing China? China is both. They are both a money power as well as a military power. So we also have to gradually, India also have to catch up with them, because China is a big threat for our country. Because I think during the lockdown period also, we faced many issues. Okay. So anyway, just for your knowledge, so unless that's the reason, actually that's how my next class. The Finance Commission have recommended a special fund for defense and internal security. And Economic Survey is covering a special thing about defense expenditure. Okay. So why is that? And things are improving, but we have to show them, okay, we are not back. Okay. So so in order to counter the global dominance of US and China, we should grow. So it's not only about our dealing with poverty and development, it is also it's about the status of our country. Anyway, so in that way, see, everything lies in economy. Now you should understand why UPSC is giving so much of importance to economy. Without economy or without a sound financial stability or financial growth, sound growth, we can't attain anything. All our problems can be solved only we are a developed country. How we can become a developed country? Based on GDP only. How we can eliminate poverty? Again, based on the growth only. Okay. So, survey says that the common factor for the previous 3 years, the common factor for the previous 3 contraction is, that is 65, 66, 71, 72 and 79, 80 is steep fall. There have been a steep fall in agricultural output or agricultural growth was negative. But in the year 2021, we had abundant monsoon leading to the agricultural sector emerging as the silver lining of the economy. It means that it has grown around positive growth, 3.4%. But the survey says that these are things 2021 contraction is once in a century crisis. Like this it will never happen. Okay. And Economic Survey says that, see, now what all things I have discussed earlier will be becoming important. Okay. You have to look into 2 angles, demand side angle and supply side. Okay. So this is demand side angle. Economic Survey says that the government consumption. What is government consumption? Government expenditure. I told you from the consumer angle only they will use it. Okay. So the government consumption and net export have cushioned the contraction in GDP. What does it mean? Means it helped. See, there are 4 sectors. Private expenditure, it is measured through this private household consumption as well as the gross capital formation, business expenditure. Okay. So the gross capital formation, that is the investment, the expenditure made by the business group or private sector. Household expenditure, that is private consumption, these 2 contributed to the GDP contraction. But the other 2, government consumption and net exports, have helped in reducing the contraction. So UPSC can trick you. How they will exchange it. They will change these 2. Or they will say that private consumption cushion the contraction in GDP. They will say that net exports contributed to the contraction in GDP in 2021. So they will confuse you. So be very clear and use your common sense. Don't by heart it, use your common sense, okay? When during the lockdown period, naturally, see, try to understand, we are still an import dependent country. Because our import is more than export. So since the demand decreased due to lockdown, import reduced. Export also reduced, but the decrease in import, the fall in import was higher than fall in exports. So net exports, see, it is the difference between export and minus import. Na? So net export helped. See, when the household was not having money to spend, business people was not making any expenditure because there is uncertainty. You can't do anything. Who was left? Government expenditure, government consumption was there. So government consumption and net exports cushioned the contraction GDP, but the other two, gross capital formation. What is this gross capital formation? It is the private expenditure, okay? Gross capital formation, we as well as the private consumption have contributed to the contraction. Now you just look into this figure, okay? Sectoral contribution to overall GDP growth. Sectoral contribution to overall GDP growth, okay? So you understand this, this yellow color is net exports. This ash color is gross capital formation. What is gross capital formation? It is the expenditure made by the private sector. Then private final consumption expenditure. It is household consumption. Private final consumption expenditure. Private final or private consumption. Private final consumption expenditure. And then this government GFC, government final consumption expenditure or government expenditure. So if you look into they are giving years, okay? This is the sectoral GDP growth, okay? In 2014-15, you just compare it, okay? You can see that which one is contributing more. No, this one. Green color, green. I'm not talking about the year, this year. Private final consumption expenditure is having the highest weightage. Private final consumption expenditure is having the highest weightage, okay? So that, and the second highest weightage is gross capital formation. See the two major components, okay? Gross capital, first one is private final consumption expenditure. Then the second highest contributor is gross capital formation. These two major component was a fall. See, green color and cash color. Which one has cushioned net exports as well as the government final consumption expenditure have helped, cushioned it. Okay. Now coming to this figure 41. Okay. All the four components has been given. Government final consumption expenditure, private final consumption expenditure, gross capital formation, net exports. So you can see that, this is the real contribution, okay? Which one is contributing highest? You can see that, okay? Private final consumption expenditure. So there is no big change, okay? Make a comparison between 1920 and 2021. In 1920, the share of private final consumption expenditure is 60%. Now due to the contraction in 2021, it reduced to 59. Gross capital formation was 30% of GDP. It reduced to 27. See the government expenditure, it increased from 12 to 4. And this net export is negligible. It's very, very less. So the order is in relation to the share of components of GDP. Major contributor is private final consumption expenditure, followed by gross capital formation, followed by government expenditure, last is net exports. Okay, and they can ask, okay, already UPSC asked a question, okay, they have given agriculture, industry and services, and they ask for decreasing order to GDP contribution. Like that they can give you this also. Now, so it is saying that so government final consumption expenditure or government consumption have helped the GDP in 2021 with the share increasing to 14% from 12%. And it is saying that the share of private consumption has almost remained the same. Yes or no? From just 1% difference only. Just 1% difference only. Now again, this is actually, don't get confused, this is a half yearly trend. Earlier trend what we have seen is, it's a full year trend. This is a half, see since economic survey is discussing, I also have to discuss and you should also know about it, okay. Just read once and understand it. If a question comes, you can easily answer it, okay. So just for your knowledge, okay, it is showing, see, they are dealing with two major expenditure. One is the private final consumption expenditure. What is this private final? It is the household expenditure only. And the government final consumption. So first we will see the private final consumption expenditure. Private final consumption expenditure. See, remember this, it is half yearly. H1, H2, H1, H2, H1, H2. So it has taken 18, 19, 19, 20 and 2021. So 3 years data they are comparing. So they are showing the share in GDP in all the half financial year. Half means or the first half and second half of the financial year. Okay. So private final consumption expenditure have moved from 58.4 to 60.2, then 59.3, then 61.2. See the first half. This is what you have to note down. See, this is the period where we had the stringent lockdown. That is April, May, June. That quarter was severely affected. April, May, June was severely. Then July, August, September, second quarter. So there, because of the contraction, what happened? The share of private final consumption expenditure went lower to 57.5. But again, it is assumed, it is expected that it will recover as part of economic recovery. From 57.5, it will move to 60.8. Okay, so this trend you keep in mind. Okay, so what you need to keep in mind is that the private final consumption expenditure is near to 60% of GDP. Out of the total, if you look into all the four components, the largest component is private final consumption expenditure, and it is near to nearly 15. Exact figure is, as per the economic survey, is 59% of GDP in the 2021 financial year. And this, one of the reason why we had contraction is because there have been the private final consumption expenditure have declined. Now coming to the government final consumption expenditure. On an average, we know that it is moving between 12 to 14%. Now see the first half of 2021. From 11.0 of the previous half, it increased to 15.1. So the government is spending high in the first half and it is reducing in the second half. If you take the entire year, it is 14%. Now take the other two components. See, this is also, please note down. They will use this word, okay. Gross fixed capital formation or gross investment, everything is same. Gross fixed capital formation or capital investment or gross investment, everything is same. This is related to the investment made by the private sector. So the gross fixed capital formation, we know that it has declined. Okay, so it was lower to 22.9 in the first half and then moved to 25.3 in the second half. So it's saying that this gross investment or gross fixed capital formation have contributed most. Why GDP have contracted? It's the major factor for this contraction is provided by the gross fixed capital formation, or in short capital formation or gross investment. So most it contribute in this financial year, and its share in GDP is at the lowest. So just note down, okay. So we can say that the private consumption expenditure is nearly 59%, followed by the gross fixed capital formation, okay. Gross fixed capital, it is 26.7%. We are taking the year 2020-21. Third one is government final consumption expenditure. It is around 14%. So this order you see, and that net export is negligible. Okay, it's not that high. Okay, it's very low. So this you keep in mind. Okay. So the gross investment which we measure to gross fixed capital formation is, it is saying, this is very, very, very important. Okay. It is one of the lowest. Gross capital formation is very low now. It is 26.7% of the GDP. We have to increase it to at least 35% of GDP. Because we already know more investment means more economic activity. And coming to net exports. Okay, see the difference between exports and imports. Okay, it was positive. Now you can see that in the first half of financial year, the import growth is negative. Of import has fallen by minus 29%. Export is minus 10%. So there is a big difference. Then in the second half, import minus 11.3, minus 5.8. So see, both export and import have fallen, but the difference have helped in reducing the net exports. You should know what is net export. Net export is export minus import. So the economic survey says that net exports have cushioned the fall in GDP in the financial year 2021, largely due to sharper contraction in imports than in exports. So these terms, they can take this cut copy statement from the economic survey and they can ask you. Either they will change it, okay, they will say import minus exports, like that. They will say that net export is import minus export. No, it is export minus imports. Okay. Now come. So we have, see, all these things we have discussed from the demand side. Expenditure is from the demand side. Okay. Now survey is saying that the advance estimate, okay, already I told you the advance estimate have released the 2021 data, and it's saying that the economy will have a negative growth rate of 7.7%. So the advance estimate for the financial year 2021 released by NSO says that it is expected to, the economy is expected to stage a resilient V-shaped recovery in the second half. See, I told you first half there is contraction, but the recovery will start in the second half. And this fact is not important, but since the economic survey is saying, okay, now economic survey is making a comparison between first half and second half. We know the quarter result, okay. NSO releases only quarter data. NSO will not release half yearly data. Q1, Q2 like that only it will release, okay. So by combining Q1 and Q2, you will get H1. So by combining Q1 and Q2, economy has declined by 15.7% in the first half. And it is saying that the decline for the entire financial year, we already know how much it is, 7.7. But in the second half, the decline will be only 0.1% GDP. This is economic survey saying, okay. So in the second half, the decline will be just 0.1%, but in the first half, it will be minus 15.7. By taking the average of H1 and H2, the GDP will contract by minus 7.7. These are all facts, not important. Only this fact is important. The entire, what is the GDP contraction for the entire financial year? That is 7.7%. So on the demand side, we're talking about the demand side. Okay, the recovery is expected to be. We are talking. See, when the recovery will have started from the second half. That is from the quarter. See, from the October month onwards, recovery started. October is the quarter 3 starting, na? So October, November, December is over. January, February, we are now in the February month. Okay, we are now in Q4. So it is saying that the recovery is broad based in the second half, and it is saying that in the second half, the biggest growth driver is likely to be government consumption. Okay, understand, it is nothing but government expenditure, which is expected to grow at a strong 17% year on year. YOY is year on year, comparing this year with the previous year. In second half, as against, so in the first half, the government consumption was how contracted. Remember, okay. See, our full scale package. If you notice the first class I have discussed in the fiscal measure, okay. Those who want, you watch that video also. Okay, our fiscal stimulus was not a one-time package. It was a staggered package. Addressing, initially we were dealing with health-related measures. The real investment started from the third quarter onwards. Like we introduced productivity linked scheme, we increased capital expenditure, everything started in the second half only. So in the first half, even the government expenditure was not that high. It is saying that in the first half, the government consumption compared to the previous year it has contracted. But in the second half, it is having a high growth of 17% growth. But when you take average, the government expenditure is high. Now coming to the private consumption, that is household expenditure, is in the second half is expected to improve significantly from a mild contraction of, regarding private consumption. Private consumption in H1, the growth is minus 18 point. Private consumption, first half, it has declined by 18.9, but in the second half, it is declining only minus 0.6%. So it's a recovery. Okay, because for the private household to spend, first they should have income. Then only they can spend. So for that, many people have lost the job. Many people's salary were reduced. That is still not have come to normal term. So it will take time. Okay. So once people started having job, once their income increases, then only it's obviously the expenditure is linked to income, na? Yes or no? So it's depending upon the economic recovery. If as early as possible, the economy have to fully recover. But unfortunately, again this lockdown coming back means again it will get affected. So that's the reason why every government is telling again to take precaution. Okay, we should not do anything. We should not go to any crowded place where the chances are very high. Especially you might seen that in festivals and in marriages now again they are not following any norms. Okay, so anyway, so that's a sign which has been I am hearing in the last few days. Okay, so you also be careful about it. Now coming to investment. See, this is economic survey. Investment measured by, the investment is measured by what figure? What is that instrument called? Gross fixed capital formation. The investment measured by gross fixed capital formation is expected to recover. In the first half, in H1, it declined by minus 29%. In H2, it is expected to recover to minus, it will again contract, but it will be 0.8%. It's a big change. So the real improvement will happen only from the 21-22 only. Now net exports. See, net exports, this economic survey, bracket they are showing, export minus imports. Turned positive. So net exports turned positive in the first half of the year. Why the net exports turned positive? Because the fall in import is very steeper than the fall in exports. Both have fallen. With a larger contraction in imports, okay, in imports the contraction is 29.1 compared to the export contraction, it is 10.7%. And it is saying that with the gradual recovery of economic activity, both imports and exports have picked up in the second half. And net exports are expected to re-enter the negative territory. Why? When because the import will be higher than the exports. See, since we are a demand-driven country, okay. See, one of the reason why we are having a net exports to be negative is the higher dependence on petroleum products. So I think just few days back our Prime Minister have said that okay, we are trying to change from depending on this petroleum products to natural gas, something like that. Means we have to reduce, and especially in relation to the petroleum prices. See, we have to find alternative sources of energy. We have to find, why, there are new form of energy is coming, okay, why we are giving so much of importance to solar energy, okay, and other form of energy, okay, I am not discussing that, okay, so why, if somebody asks you, or you may ask yourself, okay, why India is still a net, in net exports, why it is negative, or why our import is high? It's because of our higher dependence on this petroleum products. And second product I should not discuss, okay, it's because of our culture, gold. It's nothing because of nothing else. Anyway, our future woman will say that, okay, we don't want gold. We'll say that, okay, put it in our bank deposit. We demand no gold, put a same amount, put it in FD. Or you can go for sovereign gold bond, which I'll be discussing. And you can tell your, anyway, when you get married, means tell your father, anyway, you are going to give me 100 sovereign or, I'm just talking about the culture of Kerala. I don't know what, depending upon your financial, without gold a father can, whether marriage will happen. Even from this family is saying that, okay, we don't want anything. But it is understood that they want something. If they will look in, first they will see that, okay, father what is having, how is, and then they'll say, we don't want anything. It's understood they will get something, okay. Anyway, if when your parent is giving you something, you can tell, I want this much, because I need something in positive return. Why you are spending a lot of money making charges? Economically, I'm like giving you the benefit. If you buy gold for marriage, 30% of the money is waste. It's making charges. Same money you buy in sovereign gold and keep it in your pocket. Don't give it to anyone. Husband will not ask. Their family also will not ask because they don't know how much gold you are having. Safety. Yeah. Now, regarding this gold, I will discuss later because that's also a current affair. And since we are talking about imports, okay. Anyway, so it's saying that, okay, the exports in the second half, exports are expected to decline by 5.8%, but imports by 11.3%. So the difference is reduced. Earlier the difference was very high. So since, even though there is again fall in import and export, but the gap between export and import have become lower, and then that's the reason why net exports enter into a negative territory, because the volume wise import is very high than export. I'll discuss when I'll discuss this external sector. You will get the figure in balance of payment, okay. Now coming to the supply side. With this, demand side is over. Demand side angle we discussed, expenditure angle. Supply side, the gross value added growth. See, gross value added growth. See here from the supply side, they are not calculating GDP at market price. It is gross value added. Okay. So on the supply side, gross add in the year 2021, gross value added growth is minus 7.2%. You know that to the gross value added, the difference of the taxes and subsidies only we convert into GDP. Okay. So anyway, it is saying that gross value added, we know that GDP growth contracted by 7.7. Gross value addition contracted by 7.2%. It's mentioned in the economic survey. Okay. In the year 1920, gross value added growth was 3.9. But again, you have to revise it. From okay, that's not important. Okay, just this 2021, that only you fix it. Okay. Now, this is very, very important. Saying that from the supply side, only agriculture contributed to positive growth. Because agriculture grown by 3.4%. Service and industry contributed to contraction in GDP. Agricultural in 2021 have grown by 3.4%, and because of that growth, the agricultural share in GDP, it increased in its share in GDP to 19.9% in 2021 from 17.8 in 1920. So there have been an increase in the agricultural GDP because of the growth in the year 2021. It says that the agricultural activities for rabi harvesting and kharif sowing were largely unaffected by the COVID-induced lockdown. We already discussed, okay? So it's just, I'm showing what is mentioned in the economic survey.